Have you ever wanted to save money, but simply don't earn enough to do so? Then you've come to the right video. Saving money is not easy for anyone, especially on a low income, but it's still possible. In fact, people with any kind of income can start saving money without needing a lot of money to begin with. That's why in this video, we'll be going through some amazing tips that can help you save money on a low income. Make sure you watch until the end, because we're saving the best tips for last. Now, without any further ado, let's dive in. Tip 1. Save before you spend. Most people tend to save whatever they have left over after they have gone through their monthly expenses. Even though this might work out for some people, it's definitely the easiest way to save. It's not viable for people on a low income. Instead, you should try to count your savings as an essential expense at the start of each month. Pretend as if you never even had the money you saved in the first place. While this might increase the financial burden on you, it's going to make sure that you always have some money in your savings. It can also give you an opportunity to sort out your budget, but we'll talk more about that later in the video. There are also ways in which you can automate your bills and savings, and doing so will make the journey a lot easier for you. Tip 2. Lower housing costs. Housing is often the biggest expense that we all have to deal with on a monthly basis. Whether it's paying rent or a mortgage, housing will probably take up a significant chunk of your income. The average American spends 30% of their income on housing, and this figure only gets larger as the income level gets lower. That's why it's a great idea to find a way to lower your housing costs and use that money in your savings. There are a lot of ways you can do this. For example, you could move into a smaller house or apartment that has a lower rent. If you own a house, you could also rent it out and move somewhere where the rent is cheaper. You should also consider getting roommates, because a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate is actually going to cost you less than a studio apartment where you're the only tenant. There are also some newer ways people are saving money on housing, such as renting out specific rooms on Airbnb. Overall, this is definitely something a lot of people can do. It's not easy, but it'll help you save money in the long run. Tip 3. Settle your debts. Now, this is something that you should probably do before you decide to start saving money. Debt payments can make up a significant chunk of your monthly expenses, and in today's economy, almost everyone has debt. Whether it's card debt or student loans, this expense can start to eat up a chunk of your monthly income that you could have otherwise saved. That's why you should try to settle as many debts as possible before you start saving money. Pay off your card bills, and don't take any more debt. If you can get a chance to do so, you should definitely renegotiate some of your older debts. Of course, not everyone can simply settle all of their debts in a matter of months, but putting it as your top priority is definitely going to make saving money a lot easier for you in the long run. Tip 4. Consider off-brand products. If you shop at places like Walmart, Target, or Costco, you'll see a lot of these places have off-brand versions of your favorite food items at a lower price. You should definitely consider getting these off-brand products instead of the real thing. Sure, they're not gonna be as good as the real thing, but oftentimes the off-brand is anywhere from 10 to 20% cheaper. It could cut a significant chunk of your overall bill. You might even prefer some of the off-brand items. Tip 5. Cook at home. A lot of people spend a lot of money eating food outside their homes. Whether it's grabbing breakfast from McDonald's, getting a coffee from Starbucks, or having lunch with friends at a nice restaurant. But what you don't realize is that these restaurants have marked their prices up by a lot. The cost of buying one meal at a restaurant is probably enough for you to cook multiple meals at home. Despite what restaurants will try to tell you, cooking at home is almost always cheaper than eating at a restaurant. Sure, buying all of the ingredients might initially be expensive, but you'll only be using portions of that ingredient from that point forward. Food is something all of us need every day, obviously. So it's extremely important that you reduce that daily expense whenever you can. Not only will it be cheaper, but it'll also be healthier for you. You'll be saving money on the bill and keeping yourself out of the hospital. Tip 6. Cut down on the subscriptions. Saving is something that most people do monthly. There are some monthly expenses that are impossible to avoid, such as maintenance, rent, bills, and more. However, there are also some monthly expenses that you can easily avoid. For example, a lot of people are subscribed to multiple streaming services at a time. Paying $10 a month for Netflix doesn't sound too bad at first. But if you're subscribed to Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Amazon, and Disney Plus at the same time, you can easily see the problem with it. Most people have multiple subscriptions for all kinds of services, but believe it or not, you only use a few. That's why you should try to cut down on as many subscription services as you possibly can. If you're watching a show on Netflix right now, that's fine, but don't subscribe to any other service in the meantime. You might have to sacrifice some entertainment, but it's going to help you save. Tip 7. No spend month. Having a no-spend month is a new way people are starting to accelerate their overall savings. The way it works is that you dedicate 1 month, whether it's once a year or once every couple of months, where you spend money on nothing except for essential things. This means no Netflix, no Spotify, no restaurants, no takeaways, no concerts, or any sort of luxury expense at all. You will only spend money on the things you absolutely need to spend money on, and you'll be saving the rest. Living a 100% frugal life all the time is not viable for most people. But doing so for a month is definitely bearable. Overall, this month is going to stand out from the rest, as you might save 2 to 3 times as much money as you would otherwise. This is definitely something worth considering. Tip 8. Get rid of your car. You don't need a YouTube video to tell you how ridiculously expensive fuel prices are right now. But even in regular times, car expenses are simply ridiculous, especially when you're saving. That's why you should try to cut down on any car-related expenses you possibly can. If it's viable for you, get rid of the car. Seriously, cars are an expensive asset that you will constantly spend money on maintaining, but despite that, they'll continue to depreciate in value. Most people don't factor in the costs of maintaining the car and the loss of value when they compare the cost of using a car instead of public transport. But overall, a car is going to be more expensive in almost every way. That's why you should try to use public transport whenever you can. For short distance trips, consider using a bike or walking down the road instead of using a car. This could potentially save you hundreds of dollars each month. Tip 9. Create a budget. And finally, the most important tip we can give you when it comes to saving money on a low income is creating a budget. A lot of people still don't have a budget. It's easy to just earn and spend as you go without having to worry about anything, but it's simply not sustainable. You should know exactly how much money you're going to spend every single month. Otherwise, saving is going to be absolutely impossible for you in the long run. Without a budget, more often than not, you'd have to take money out of your savings in case any surprise expenses pop up. When you create a careful budget that includes every single expense that you have, you never have to be surprised. But you don't just create a budget to know your expenses. You also create a budget to manage your expenses. Creating a budget is the first step that anyone can take to be financially responsible, and if you have a low income, saving is almost impossible without it. That's a wrap for this video. What are some of your top saving tips? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.